Remove children from the screens right now. What Miles Ghost Hunter is about to tell you is the story of a young man who had a $40 million contract in his pocket, a Super Bowl ring on his finger, and a mansion in Massachusetts with a swimming pool the size of a skating rink. 18 months later, that same young man was sitting in a cage wearing orange, serving life without the possibility of parole. And 5 days after that, guards would find him hanging from a bedsheet with Bible verses written in ink across his own forehead. His name was Aaron Hernandez. He was 27 years old. And when the coroners cut open his skull and took out his brain, what they found inside made grown men who have seen everything walk out of the autopsy room to get some air. I'm Miles Ghost Hunter, and this is not just another football story. This is the story of how a league worth billions, a team full of champions, a family, a city, and a sport all looked at a kid who was drowning and cashed the check instead of throwing him a rope. By the time we're done here, you're going to understand that what happened in that prison cell in April of 2017 started years earlier, in a high school gym in Bristol, Connecticut, with every hit to the head that nobody bothered to count. Let me show you where we begin. Not in a stadium, not on a football field, in a patch of weeds behind an industrial park in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, at a little past 5 in the afternoon, on the 17th of June, 2013. A jogger comes around the corner to stretch his legs after work, and he sees what he thinks at first is a pile of clothes dumped in the dirt. He gets closer. It's a body. Young black male. Face up. Gunshot wounds to the chest. One to the head. Shell casings scattered in the gravel like somebody had been standing right over him and firing down. The body was found less than 1 mile from the front gate of a sprawling modern mansion at 22 Ronald C. Meyer Drive, a house that belonged to one of the most famous tight ends in the National Football League, a house that had cost $1.3 million, a house where, at that very moment, a young father was playing with his 7-month-old baby daughter by the pool. But before we walk into that mansion, before we drag the truth out of that house by its hair, you need to know who was lying in that field. Because this story is not about Aaron Hernandez. It is about Odin Lloyd, and every single one of you needs to remember his name. Odin Lloyd was 27 years old, just like the man who would eventually kill him. He was born in St. Croix in the United States Virgin Islands, but he grew up in the Dorchester neighborhood of Boston. His mother, Ursula Ward, raised him and his sister, Olivia. Ursula worked 2 jobs most of his childhood. She cleaned offices at night and worked a cash register during the day. Odin graduated from John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science. He was a landscaper by trade. He cut grass, he trimmed hedges, he mowed yards all over Greater Boston in a pair of work boots that he kept polished because he took pride in showing up clean. On the weekends, he played semi-professional football for a team called the Boston Bandits. He was a linebacker. He wore number 7. He had muscle, he had speed, and when he hit somebody on a Saturday afternoon, you felt it on Monday morning. Odin had plans. He had just started dating a young woman named Shania Jenkins, a law student at City College of New York. Shania, and this is important, had an older sister named Shayana. Shayana Jenkins was engaged to be married to a professional football player. The professional football player was Aaron Hernandez. Odin Lloyd was, in other words, the boyfriend of the sister of the fiancée of a man with a $40 million contract. At a family barbecue 2 weeks before his death, Odin stood in that mansion by that swimming pool, holding a beer in one hand and shaking Aaron's hand with the other. They had cookouts together. They went to nightclubs together. Odin called Aaron his friend. The last day of Odin Lloyd's life was Monday, June the 17th, 2013. He woke up in his apartment in Dorchester. He got dressed. He went to work landscaping just like he did every weekday. He came home. He ate dinner with his mother. At around 8 in the evening, he got a text message on his phone. The text said, "Come outside." Odin stepped out onto the street. A silver Nissan Altima pulled up to the curb. 3 men were inside. The driver was Aaron Hernandez. Odin climbed into the back seat. The last thing his mother Ursula remembers is the sound of a car door closing. She went back to watching television. She assumed her son had gone out with friends. He was 27 years old. She did not worry about him. Now listen to me carefully, because the next 90 minutes of Odin Lloyd's life are going to decide everything. And the only reason we know what happened is that Odin himself, while sitting in the back seat of that silver Nissan, did something that saved this entire case from ever being buried. He started sending text messages to his sister Olivia. At 8:22 in the evening, he typed the following words. "Did you see who I'm with?" At 8:23, Olivia wrote back, "Who?" At 8:24, Odin replied with 2 letters. 2 letters that would nail Aaron Hernandez to the wall. The 2 letters were N and H, meaning Nick and Hernandez, meaning Ernest Wallace, known as Nick, and Aaron Hernandez. Then he added, "Just know that. Just know that." Those are the last words Odin Lloyd ever sent to his sister. At 8:25 in the evening, the silver Nissan Altima was captured on a surveillance camera driving into an industrial park on John L. Deach Boulevard. At 8:27, a man mowing his lawn at a house across the road heard what he later described to police as a string of firecrackers. Pop, pop, pop. Pop, pop. He looked up. He saw nothing. He kept mowing. At 8:28, the silver Nissan Altima was captured on the same surveillance camera, driving back out of the industrial park. 4 men had gone in. 3 came out. Let me tell you about Aaron Hernandez as he was in that moment. On paper, he was untouchable. He had been born on the 6th of November, 1989, in Bristol, Connecticut, a small factory town of 60,000 people. His father, Dennis Hernandez, was a legend in Bristol. Dennis had played football at the University of Connecticut. He was known in town as the King, because on the football field at Bristol Central High School, he had broken records that stood for decades. Dennis worked as a janitor at Bristol's South Side School. He was a tough, loud, funny, explosive man. He beat his 2 sons. He beat them with belts. He beat them with fists. He beat them to make them men. In January of 2006, Dennis Hernandez went into the hospital for a routine hernia surgery. He died on the operating table from complications. Aaron was 16 years old. He never recovered. He told his closest friend, Dennis Jr., his older brother, that the only person in the world he had ever respected was gone. After his father's death, Aaron's behavior changed. He became withdrawn. He became violent. He started smoking marijuana every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. His mother, Terry Valentine Hernandez, was working full-time and grieving. She started dating the cousin of Aaron's cousin's wife, a man named Jeffrey Cummings. The family fractured. Aaron's cousin, Tanya Cummings Singleton, the one person he trusted after his father died, would later go to prison herself for refusing to testify against him. This is a family where loyalty meant silence, and silence meant protection. On the football field, Aaron was a monster, 6 feet 2 inches, 250 pounds of muscle, with the speed of a receiver in the hands of a wideout. By his senior year at Bristol Central, he was ranked the #1 tight end recruit in the entire country. The University of Florida, under coach Urban Meyer, signed him. He played alongside Tim Tebow. He won a national championship in January of 2009. He was a first-team All-American. And in the 2010 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots, the franchise of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, took him in the 4th round, 113th overall. Why so late? Because during his time at Florence, clean up the basement the next morning while he was out. And that Shayana, at Aaron's instruction, took that cardboard box of baby clothes with the Glock at the bottom of it out of the basement. She drove somewhere in her own car. She dumped the box, and she came home. She told no one, not her sister Shania, whose boyfriend had just been murdered, not her mother, not the police when they knocked. She was 24 years old. She was a new mother. She was engaged to marry the man who had just used her hands to hide the weapon that killed her sister's boyfriend. Let that soak into your skull for a second. Feel the cold of it. The Glock itself was never found. Not then, not now, not ever. It is still out there somewhere, rusting in a landfill or at the bottom of a river in Massachusetts. But the prosecution did not need the gun anymore, because they had Ortiz. They had the surveillance video. They had the text messages. They had Odin's phone GPS pinging off cell towers that matched the route of the Altima, step for step. They had a shoe print in the gravel of the industrial park that matched a pair of Air Jordans sold in Aaron's exact size 12, a pair that was photographed on Aaron's foot in a social media post 48 hours before the murder and was never found in the mansion afterwards. And they had the hammer, and the smashed DVR, and the sledgehammer receipt, and a bubblegum wrapper with Aaron's DNA on it, lying in the parking lot of the Enterprise rental company where the Altima had been returned, 30 feet away from a spent .40 caliber shell casing that matched the ones in the industrial park. A bubblegum wrapper. Think about that. This man, this professional athlete with a 250-pound body trained to perform under pressure in front of 60,000 screaming fans, could not handle the simple task of throwing his gum in the trash after committing a murder. He spat it out the window of the rental car. He dropped the gun in a box of baby clothes. He smashed his own security system with his own credit card on file at Walmart. Miles, GhostHunter is going to tell you right now why. Remember that word. Why? Because we are going to come back to it. And when we come back to it, you are going to understand everything. But first, the prosecutors have something else. Something that makes the Odin Lloyd case look like a parking violation. Because while the Bristol County District Attorney is preparing for trial, a detective in Boston named Paul Duggan is sitting at his desk with a cold case file that has been gathering dust for almost a year. In the early hours of the 16th of July, 2012, in Boston's South End, a BMW had pulled up alongside a silver SUV at a red light on Shawmut Avenue. Somebody in the BMW had opened fire. 2 men in the SUV were killed on the spot. Their names were Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado, both in their 20s, both from Cape Verde, both with no criminal records. They had just come from a nightclub called Cure. They were on their way home. The killer fled. The BMW vanished. The case went cold. But now, in the summer of 2013, a detective cross-referencing vehicles registered to Aaron Hernandez pulls up something interesting. 1 year earlier, in July of 2012, Aaron Hernandez had rented a silver BMW from a dealership in Providence, Rhode Island. The rental was supposed to be for 3 days. He kept it for 8 months. He paid for the extended rental out of his own pocket, in cash. When he finally returned the car in March of 2013, he returned it to a different dealership with a crumpled body panel and a bullet hole in the driver's side door. The dealership manager, not wanting to lose a celebrity client, had the bullet hole patched and the car resold without ever reporting it to the police. But he kept the work order. He kept a photograph of the damage. And now, with Aaron's name all over the news, he calls Detective Duggan. Within weeks, the Boston investigators have more. A nightclub bouncer at Cure tells them that on the night of the shooting, a man matching Aaron Hernandez's description had a physical altercation inside the club. Somebody, he says, bumped into Aaron on the dance floor and spilled a drink on his shirt. Aaron, witnesses say, did not react in the club. He smiled it off. But when he got outside, he was a different man. He was pacing. He was muttering. He was making phone calls. 40 minutes later, those 2 young men from Cape Verde who had been in the club were dead at a red light. On the 15th of May, 2014, while already sitting in jail awaiting trial for the Odin Lloyd murder, Aaron Hernandez is indicted for 2 additional counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado. 2 innocent men, a drink, a shirt, a bump on the dance floor. Miles, Ghost Hunter wants you to sit with that for a moment. Because this is the moment where the story stops being about a crime and starts being about something that is wrong on a cellular level inside the skull of this man. You do not execute two strangers because somebody spilled a drink on you, unless something in your brain no longer works the way a brain is supposed to work. We are going to come back to the brain. Stay with me. The first trial for Odin Lloyd opens on the 27th of January 2015 in Fall River, Massachusetts. Judge Susan Garsh presides. The prosecution is led by District Attorney William McCauley, a veteran with a face like weathered stone. The defense is led by James Sultan, one of the best criminal attorneys in New England. The trial lasts 9 weeks. 132 witnesses take the stand. 439 pieces of evidence are admitted. Shayana Jenkins testifies for the prosecution under a grant of immunity. She admits on the witness stand that she took the box out of the basement. She admits that she dumped it. She claims, with a straight face, that she does not know what was inside. The jury watches her lie. The jury sees what she is doing. She is lying to save a dead man's legacy for the sake of their daughter. Aaron Hernandez sits at the defense table through all of it. He wears a suit. He takes notes on a yellow legal pad. He does not take the stand. He does not apologize. He does not react. Not when Odin's mother Ursula testifies about identifying her son's body. Not when the medical examiner describes the entry and exit wounds in graphic detail. Not when prosecutors play the jailhouse phone call, where Aaron, speaking to Shayana, instructs her to search for a box of his old belongings at, quote, the usual spot, end quote. He sits there. He breathes. He smiles that smile, very rarely, very quickly, and only at certain witnesses. On the 15th of April 2015, the jury deliberates for 36 hours over 7 days. At 3:45 in the afternoon, they file back into the courtroom. The foreman stands. Everyone in the gallery holds their breath. Aaron's mother Terry is sitting behind him. Odin's mother Ursula is sitting across the aisle. The verdict is read. Guilty. First-degree murder. Guilty. Unlawful possession of a firearm. Guilty. Unlawful possession of ammunition. Mandatory sentence in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for first-degree murder. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Aaron Hernandez, 25 years old at the time of the verdict, stands up. He turns to Shayana, who is weeping in the front row, holding their 2-year-old daughter Avielle, and he says, out loud, quote, be strong, end quote. He mouths the words, I love you, and then he is led out of the courtroom in handcuffs to serve a sentence that has no end except death. He is transported to the Sousa Baranowski Correctional Center in Shirley, Massachusetts, a maximum security prison. He is given inmate number W106228. He is placed in protective custody because of his celebrity status. His cell is 6 feet by 8 feet. Concrete, steel, a cot, a sink, a toilet. A man who 2 years earlier had signed a $40 million contract now spends 23 hours a day staring at a cinder block wall. But the Boston trial is still coming, for the murders of Daniel D'Abreu and Safiro Furtado. And this is where the story takes a turn that nobody, not the prosecutors, not the defense, not Miles' Ghost Hunter, nobody could have predicted. The Boston double murder trial opens on the 1st of March, 2017, 2 years after the Odin Lloyd conviction. By this point, Aaron has been in prison for nearly 4 years. His appearance has changed. He has gained muscle, lost weight in the face, grown his hair out. His eyes look different. Lawyers who had represented him in the first trial and now visited him in prison said later, and this is a direct quote from defense attorney Jose Baez, who took over the Boston case, that Aaron was, quote, not the same person, end quote. He would forget conversations from 5 minutes earlier. He would burst into rage over trivial things. He would speak in rambling, paranoid patterns about being watched. about cameras in the ceiling of his cell, about the Illuminati. Baez thought his client was developing schizophrenia. Baez, it turns out, was wrong. It was much worse. The Boston trial is, to the shock of absolutely everybody in legal circles, an acquittal. On the 14th of April 2017, after 6 days of deliberation, the jury returns a verdict of not guilty on both counts of murder. The prosecution's case had depended heavily on a witness named Alexander Bradley, a former friend of Aaron's who claimed to have been in the BMW at the time of the shootings. But Bradley was himself a convicted drug dealer with a long rap sheet, and the defense shredded his credibility on cross-examination. The jury could not find Aaron guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The gavel comes down. Aaron smiles, actually smiles, a genuine smile, for the first time in years. He hugs his lawyer. He mouths thank you to the jurors. He is still serving life without parole for Odin Lloyd, and everybody in that courtroom knows it. But for 45 seconds in that Suffolk County courtroom, Aaron Hernandez feels, maybe for the last time in his life, what winning feels like. He is transported back to the Souza Baranovsky Correctional Center that evening. He eats dinner in his cell. He makes phone calls to his fiancée, Shayana, and to his mother, Terry. The calls are, according to recordings reviewed later, cheerful. He talks about future appeals. He talks about seeing his daughter, Avielle. He sounds like a man with hope. 5 days later, on the morning of the 19th of April 2017, at 3:05 in the morning, a corrections officer doing a routine check on Aaron's cell looks through the observation window and sees something that makes him drop his flashlight. Aaron Hernandez is hanging from a bedsheet tied to the window bars of his cell. His feet are dangling off the floor. He has been dead for at least an hour. Rigor mortis is already setting in. The corrections officers cut him down. They attempt resuscitation. It is hopeless. He is pronounced dead at 4:07 in the morning at UMass Memorial Hospital, 27 years old. But, the corrections officers, when they enter the cell, find things that make the Massachusetts Department of Correction pause and think very carefully about what they are about to release to the press. Written on the wall of the cell, in ink, are 3 biblical passages. The phrase John 3:16, a scripture reference to the Gospel of John, verse 16 of chapter 3, the one that begins, "For God so loved the world." Also written on the wall, in the same ink, in the same handwriting, the Latin phrase, Illuminati, eternal. And on the floor of the cell, open to that same passage in John, is a Bible. The page is smeared with a red substance. At first they think it is blood. It is not blood. It is ink. The same ink he used to write on the walls. And then they turn Aaron's body over, and they see it. Written across his own forehead, in the same block capital letters, in the same ink, are the numbers and letters. John 3:16, written on his own forehead before he hanged himself. His own skin used as his final page. 3 separate handwritten suicide notes are found in the cell. One is addressed to Shayana. One is addressed to his daughter Avielle. One is addressed to his friend and fellow inmate Kyle Kennedy, with whom he had been in what prosecutors would later characterize as a romantic relationship inside the prison. The letter to Kennedy was among the items later reviewed by investigators. It was tender. It was affectionate. It used language that Aaron Hernandez, the Bristol tough guy, the cage-dancing nightclub brawler, the $40 million alpha, had never used with another living soul on record. Here is what you need to understand. Miles, GhostHunter, is going to speak plainly now because this part requires no theatrics. Aaron Hernandez had been living a double life for the entire length of his career. His high school girlfriend's best friend, a man named Dennis Sansusi, would later confirm in a documentary that he and Aaron had been in a physical relationship throughout their adolescence, and that Aaron had lived in absolute terror of his father, Dennis Sr., ever finding out. Dennis Sr., the King of Bristol, had beaten the gay out of his son before the boy even understood what was being beaten out of him. Aaron had spent his entire life hiding the most important part of who he was, in a sport that in the early 2010s did not have a single openly gay active player, in a family that would have disowned him, in a community that would have destroyed him, in a body that the National Football League was paying $40 million to use as a weapon. Now we come back to the brain. After the suicide, Aaron's family, on the advice of attorney Jose Baez, does something highly unusual. They request that his brain be donated to Boston University's Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy Center, the leading research institution in the world studying the long-term effects of repeated head trauma in athletes. The brain is removed during autopsy. It is transported to the CTE Center. It is examined by the director of the center, Dr. Ann McKee, one of the most respected neuropathologists in the world. Dr. McKee has examined the brains of over 200 deceased NFL players by that point in her career. She has seen everything. She has seen brains of 60-year-old offensive linemen riddled with damage. She has seen brains of retired linebackers that look like sponges. She has never seen a brain like Aaron Hernandez's, not in a human this young. On the 21st of September 2017, Dr. McKee holds a press conference at Boston University. She stands at a podium in front of enlarged photographs of slices of Aaron's brain tissue. She points to dark brown and black splotches visible throughout the frontal lobe, the temporal lobes, the amygdala, the hippocampus. She explains what the jury never heard, what the prosecutors never presented, what the defense never argued. She explains that Aaron Hernandez, at the time of his death at age 27, had stage 3 chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Stage 3 out of 4. The kind of damage typically found in the brains of NFL players in their late 60s. The kind of damage that takes 40 or 50 years of repeated subconcussive hits to accumulate. Aaron had that damage by the age of 27. She calls it, and this is her direct quote, the most severe case of CTE she has ever seen in a brain this young. End quote. What does stage 3 CTE do to a human being? It destroys judgment. It destroys impulse control. It produces paranoia, depression, explosive rage, cognitive decline, memory loss, and in a significant percentage of cases, suicidal behavior. It literally changes the structure of the frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for telling you not to shoot the guy who spilled your drink. It physically erodes the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear and empathy. A person with stage 3 CTE is not fully in control of their own behavior. Their brain is, in a very literal medical sense, no longer the brain they were born with. Now listen, Miles Ghost Hunter is not here to tell you that Aaron Hernandez was innocent. He was not. He murdered Odin Lloyd. He almost certainly murdered Daniel Diabreu and Safiro Furtado. He was a violent, calculating, self-destructive human being who made a chain of decisions that ended 3 lives, ruined his own family, and left a little girl named Avielle growing up without a father. None of that is in question. He pulled the trigger, he hid the gun, he smashed the cameras, he cashed the checks. But the jury that sent him to prison for life, and the public that cheered that verdict, and the New England Patriots that cut him loose within 90 minutes, and the National Football League that pocketed billions of dollars of revenue while his brain was being pulverized on Sunday afternoons in front of the whole country. Every single one of them was judging a man whose brain was no longer capable of the kind of moral reasoning we demand of a defendant at trial. The medical evidence came out 5 months after he was already dead. It could not save him. It could not bring back Odin Lloyd. But it changed the story. And here is the part that will make your blood boil. Before the 2017 season began, just months after Aaron's suicide, the NFL settled a class action lawsuit with former players over CTE and brain injuries. The settlement was worth $1 billion. Aaron Hernandez's estate, because of his murder conviction, was excluded from that settlement by the terms of his release from the Patriots contract. He received nothing. His daughter Avielle received nothing for the damage done to her father's brain in the stadiums her father helped fill. Separately, a lawsuit filed on Avielle's behalf against the NFL and the Patriots was eventually settled in 2019 for an undisclosed amount believed to be well below $1 million. The league moved on. The Patriots went on to win another Super Bowl. Tom Brady held up another trophy. Bill Belichick wore another hooded sweatshirt. And somewhere in a cemetery in Bristol, Connecticut, under a simple headstone, Aaron Hernandez lies buried next to his father Dennis. The king and the prince. Both of them died young. Both of them took their secrets with them. One to an operating table, one to a bedsheet. Odin Lloyd is buried in Dorchester. His mother Ursula, after the verdict, stood outside the courthouse and forgave the man who killed her son. She said, quote, "I forgive the hands of the people who had a hand in my son's murder, either before or after. I pray and hope that someday everyone out there will forgive them also." End quote. You want to talk about real strength? You want to talk about a heart that should not exist in this world? That is Ursula Ward, a cleaning lady from Boston who lost her only son and who, within hours of the verdict, found room in her chest for forgiveness. Miles GhostHunter will bow to Ursula Ward every single time. She is the only hero in this entire story. Shayana Jenkins never married Aaron. She took her daughter Avielle. She changed her last name. She gave interviews. She wrote a book. She is raising her daughter. The daughter who will one day Google her own father's name and find this video among the millions of others. Shania Jenkins, Odin's girlfriend, cut off all contact with her sister. 2 sisters, 1 dinner table Erties. Ernest Nick Wallace, who did not flip, got life without parole alongside Aaron, reduced on appeal to 2nd degree with possibility of parole after 15 years. He is still in a Massachusetts prison. He is 46 years old. He still refuses to speak about what happened in the industrial park. Bill Belichick, the coach who drafted Aaron Hernandez, the coach who personally attended Aaron's wedding plans, the coach who sat at dinners with Aaron and Shayana and their daughter, never gave a full public interview about Aaron after the arrest. When asked at a press conference, he mumbled a statement about moving forward and never spoke his name again. When the CTE diagnosis came out, Belichick said nothing. When Avielle's lawsuit was settled, Belichick said nothing. The Patriots franchise has quietly removed almost all photographs of Aaron Hernandez from their stadium, their website, their promotional materials. It is as if he was never there, as if the touchdowns he scored in that Super Bowl run never happened, as if the cheers of 60,000 fans every Sunday, slamming their hands together while his brain slammed against the inside of his skull, never happened. But it did happen. And when you watch football this weekend, when you watch a tight end get up from a vicious hit and jog back to the huddle with his helmet rattling, remember the name Aaron Hernandez. Remember the brain that never saw 28. Remember that the contract that made him rich and the sport that made him famous were the same machines that ground him into paste. And remember that the system that cashed his checks threw him out the back door the instant he was no longer useful. That is the story. That is the whole story. A young man with a $40 million contract, a Super Bowl ring, a mansion, a daughter, a secret, a gun, a box of baby clothes, a smashed DVR, a bubblegum wrapper, a silver Nissan Altima, a body in a field, a courtroom smile, a cell door, a bedsheet, a piece of scripture written on his own forehead, and a brain that, when they cut it open, looked like a man 3 times his age, a brain that never saw 28. And in the next episode, we go into the story of a man named Drew Peterson, a cop from Bolingbrook, Illinois, a man whose 3rd wife died in a bathtub with bruises on her body, a man whose fourth wife disappeared off the face of the earth and has never been found to this day. A law was literally written and named after her, so that a dead woman's own words could be used to convict her killer in court. If you have strong nerves, and you want to know how a police officer got away with it for years while investigating other people's murders on the clock, hit that subscribe button. Miles, Ghost Hunter, will see you there. Sleep tight, lock your doors, and remember, sometimes the monster lives in the house you thought was safe.